I just wanted to say that my background is more general in property and natural resources law, and also some in international investment law. And I so I will say something more general, but also about especially about natural resource investments. I don't know how important that is in Sri Lanka, but I understand it might be possible. The one main thing I would say is that the nexus of law and economic development has often been underestimated, and the development of a legal system, a legal protection that is in order to enhance economic development and also foreign. There's two things. One thing is foreign investment, which is the theme today, but also to have a legal system which makes also easy investments, and for locals is important. All right, there it is. If you can go to the next screen and the next, there we are. Now back. Of course, these kind of investment agreements with specific countries are of course important, but they are also a sign that there is something, that you have some special need. I think there is a need to develop also the national legal system in order to meet the requirements of investors. They are, of course, law is a system or established in order to try to minimize risk. We cannot predict the future, but we try to minimize the risk as much as possible, and securing rights and making sure something is going to happen in the future is important. So clear legal rights, which we have heard from this investment treaties, which are, from what I understand now, standard international investment treaties, are of course important, but I think it's also, I would say something about education. I was asked to do that. That is also important, because these investment treaties and the special arbitration systems which are established internationally is in a way an instrument to try to remedy the problem that many countries do not have a legal system and a court system that the international investors would trust in making investments. But that is of course the situation. But you can go to the next, I think. And I think that there are different issues in this area depending on the character of the investment. Natural resource investments, which are often based on licenses or concessions from the authorities, is one area of law or of investments, which we can say that states operate on an international market where they have to establish concession systems, license systems, which makes their country attractive for investments, and establish a system which are trusted, but also take care of the national needs. There are some balances here, and the same thing maybe you can go back to the investments in infrastructure projects, which are often also between the state or local authorities and foreign investors. And then we have the more ordinary business investments, which we have been talking about, which the former speaker talked about. which are of course the most interesting here. Maybe having people with connections to Sri Lanka come back with investments, and that is between private parties, usually a private party in Sri Lanka and a private foreign party. And I would say a little bit about that. If you go a bit further, next. Now back one back. Company law. To have one thing is to say that you are secured equal treatment, and yet you shall not be treated badly by the authorities. But there is also a need for to establish a company law, which is the relation between the parties, the private party in Sri Lanka and the private party from the investor, which are effective and make decision making and so on, and also of course these other things that you can retrieve your profit and so on, but you also need a legal instrument in the form of a company. Speak about joint ventures, but that is an unclear. I wrote my doctoral thesis about joint ventures a long time ago, so I know that, but that is it depends on the agreement, and you would need I think would develop a company law which is modern and take care of the parties' interests in an effective way. Property law. There might be restrictions on land ownership. We have that in Norway. We have other places. And I understand that foreigners cannot own land. That's understandable, but it also creates some uncertainty. A working land registry is by some theoretically, like Hernando de Soto and others, seen as maybe the most important factor for economic development in a country. To have a system where land or another values can be made visible, and as a basis for a functioning credit system with mortgages and so on. The foreign investor might not look so much for this, but depending on how their economic basis is, but I think also that will be of interest. You can go to the next one. I was asked to say a little bit about the need for legal education, since I have my background also in that, and legal education is of course important. And I was dean for 10 years, and also after that I've been involved in work with curriculum change and curriculum development. It's of course important to have a national expertise also in law, because if you have to trust foreigners, they might be loyal, but they might also have other interests. So in the development of a national law, depending on a national expertise in law, as law and culture are interconnected, and somebody has to see this from Sri Lanka's side. Direct legal transplants are problematic and not always successful, and it needs adaptation to local conditions and traditions. And even if learning from other jurisdictions, of course, are also important. So I think that to have high quality education they might go abroad also to have some part of their education, but to have high quality education of national. Understand? I'm going to stop in a minute. To have
you can take another minute.
Okay, I will round it up soon, and then we can have questions and discussions. But this regulation it's important that you have to look at what does foreign investors look for, and in order to get enough investment. But when maybe many countries doesn't, it's hard to, the political and legal authorities also want to keep control, and there is often a kind of something that would be a barrier to investors. It is important to give them real protection and which they trust, but on the other hand, to make sure that there is room for political action. The criticism against these investment protection treaties are often that they go too far in protection of the investor on a high level, especially in big projects, and because the country, the political authorities need to have room for new legislation to develop labor law, environmental law standards, and social standards also. So the investment should be protected, and the ownership and the property, but it should not limit too much the legislative development of the country. And a robust national legal system and a court system is still important. And to trust too much on these investment treaties is maybe, I think it's maybe not enough. It's the investors would look for a place where they have a stable legal system, legal and political situation, of course, but also seen from the countryside, it's important to have a certain control, but to have an independent legal system that is trusted by foreigners.
That was an excellent point of view from a foreign investor. He's brought up a very valid point, balancing national interest with a lot of protection for investment. That's a great thought, Professor. Thank you very much for that thought.